Yo, what's up, guys? So the NHL trade deadline has come and gone, and the Toronto Maple Leafs have added a few new players to the team and some very good additions to the team, I might add. Bringing in Scott Laughton from the Philadelphia Flyers. The Leafs trade Nikita Gurbenkin and a 2027 first-round pick for Scott Laughton. Really good deal by Brad Treliving of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And also, they get Brandon Carlo from the Boston Bruins for a first-round pick, and unfortunately, Fraser Minton will be going to Boston in a deal, guys. So let's talk about the Leafs deals first, and then we'll talk about some massive trades that also went on today at the trade deadline. So I have to say, guys, great job by Brad Treliving to get the two most important pieces the Leafs needed at the deadline, a third-line center and a right-handed defenseman. Really good job by Brad Treliving. You get a guy like Scott Laughton, who's around 26 years old. He's got a year left on his contract, guys. Philadelphia's retaining 50% of the salary, so Scott Laughton's going to be making $1.5 million for this year and next year, guys. It's a great deal by the Leafs, guys. Scott Laughton is a hometown boy from Oakville. He's very excited to come home and play for the Leafs. Massive for the Maple Leafs to get a guy in here who can give them some grit, some toughness, who slots in perfectly in that third-line center role, guys, right behind Matthews and John Tavares. So I think this is a great move for the Leafs, bringing, like I said, some added grit, some toughness, a guy who can get in there, maybe on the PK a little bit here and there. So this is a really good addition by the Maple Leafs, gives them a little bit more depth. Now you got a real third-line center with guys like McMahon and Domi playing on the wings there. That is a really good third line for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And like I said, $1.5 million is really cheap for the Leafs. That's why you got rid of Fraser Minton. You get a guy like Scott Laughton now. Minton's more of a future guy. So this is a really good move by the Maple Leafs, guys. Now speaking about Fraser Minton and his trade for Brandon Carlo. Brandon Carlo, listen, guys, we haven't had a defenseman like this in quite some time. Brandon Carlo's 6'5", 225 pounds. Right-handed defensemen, they're not easy to come by, especially at the deadline. They're very expensive trades. You get a guy like Carlo who brings, as a stay-at-home defenseman, he brings size, toughness. Obviously, he's haunted the Maple Leafs last few years, and obviously with the Bruins beating the Leafs multiple times in the playoffs, you get a perfect defense partner for Morgan Riley, something similar to Luke Shen. Carlo, is going to be on the PK. He's got a shot from the point. We've seen him do that against the Leafs, of course. So this is a really good move by Brad Treliving. He's only making $4 million a year, and now Boston's retaining 15%. So Brandon Carlo's going to be making about 3.5 for the next couple years after this year. Good job by the Maple Leafs to get some guys with some term. You don't have to trade the entire farm. Obviously you have to give up Gurbenkin and Minton, and obviously, guys like Fraser Minton, who was loved by a lot of Leaf fans, and Nikita Gurbenkin, who had his iconic moment, forecheck, backcheck, paycheck. I love that kid's attitude. I wish him nothing but the best in Philadelphia. But Brad Treliving did the right things. He made the right moves for the Maple Leafs, of course. Obviously a lot of people were panicked because Brad Treliving hadn't made a move till halfway through the day. And everyone's thinking, Brad, make a damn move, because if this team here stays the way they were, a lot of fans were going to be freaking out if they came onto YouTube or whatever and start talking about how the Maple Leafs did not improve as a hockey team. And luckily enough, they improved dramatically, I felt, in both positions, guys. Really good job by the Maple Leafs. And then obviously, the big trades that happened today. One guy I'm going to mention is Mikko Rantanen going from Carolina to Dallas and signing a massive 8-year deal, guys, at $12 million a year. Great move by Dallas to get Rantanen. But I will say this about Mikko Rantanen. Apparently, from Nick Kyprios on Sportsnet, he was this close to becoming a Toronto Maple Leaf. So, apparently, he had stated that the Leafs were willing to offer Fraser Minton, Easton Cowan, and 2 first-round picks for Mikko Rantanen, but Carolina refused because of the fear of possibly playing the Leafs in a conference final or any time in the playoffs. So, Carolina had that fear. But it goes to show Brad Treliving is very aggressive, and he's willing to make changes to this roster if need be, if the Leafs do not go deep in the playoffs. And he's willing to take a big swing if possible. And that's another sign to Mitch Marner, too, now. Rantanen's making $12 million a year for 8 years, and he's also got a Stanley Cup ring. So if you guys ask me, Mitch Marner should not be making more than $12 million a year on his next contract. Less than Austin Matthews. I think $12 million is the most feasible option for Mitch Marner. But we'll wait and see now, guys. Mitch Marner is now obviously the big dog in the free agency market if he does end up going to free agency on July 1st. So that is really big for not only Marner himself, but his camp if he ends up going to July 1st. We'll see. It all depends on what happens in April, guys, and how big him and the Leafs players perform. Matthews, Nylander, Tavares, etc. You know what I mean, right? So Rantanen Going to Dallas, big move for him, signing a massive extension, going back to the Central against his former team, the Avalanche. Big deal for the Stars and him. You know, you saw Colorado strengthen. You got Charlie Coyle and Brock Nelson, of course. But the big deal, guys, was obviously around 3 o'clock this afternoon when we heard Brad Marchand's name get mentioned. And then you hear that little pause thinking, please be in the West, please be in the West. And then you hear the Florida Panthers name come up. And then I just say to myself, really? Really? Out of all teams to strengthen, and a team that already has enough ball busters on their team with Sam Bennett and Matthew Tkachuk, they going at Brad Marchand. Like, honestly, guys, Florida, what a deadline they had. You know, going against Seth Jones a week ago, you get Brad Marchand now. It's a great deadline for the Panthers, guys. They have become probably the favorite in the East to go back to the final, to defend their championship, of course. They're mean as hell, guys. You know, that top six they got, Barkov, Reinhart, Verhaeghe, and now you got a second line of Marchand, Bennett, and Tkachuk. My God, I fear for the Toronto Maple Leafs if they have to play that team in a playoff round. I seriously do, guys. It made me sick to my stomach hearing that Brad Marchand could be possibly playing the Leafs again in a playoff round if the Leafs do get to the second round. Now, possibly is a big thing because now obviously the other team in the Atlantic Division that made moves was the Tampa Bay Lightning, of course. They traded for Yanni Gordon. Bjorkstrand scored a goal yesterday. You know what I mean? So Tampa Bay's just as good, guys. You know, Boston, they completely sold a bunch of their players. Like I said, Coyle, Marchand, to name a few guys. You know, so Boston's on a fire sale mode right now. And especially after what happened to them last night in Carolina with Zadorov stick breaking on them. You know, and them losing that game in the last second of the hockey game, last minute of the game. That was crazy to see. I think Boston realized then it's time to move on and rebuild and start from scratch again, obviously, of course. Right? So Boston's rebuilding now. They probably don't look like they're going to make the playoffs. They're starting a rebuilding process now, it seems. You know, guys, so Winnipeg made some moves as well. You got Luke Schenn, and they got Chris Tanever's brother, Brandon Tanev, going over there. So they got some guys to add to their lineup. Of course, Ottawa added Cousins, good player, really nice player. They got some good players, the Senators, I feel. So adding Cousins is really good. Obviously, Brady Tkachuk making a big deal about losing his best buddy, Josh Norris, there. So that's obviously going to be tough for him. But the Senators got better by adding a guy like Cousins. Now, guys, we saw a lot of deals being made. The Leafs did what they had to do to strengthen. Florida and Tampa did what they had to do to strengthen. We saw teams in the West like Colorado and Dallas strengthen. Vegas didn't do much. But listen, guys, it's all going to come down to what happens in April, and especially regarding the Toronto Maple Leafs, guys. It's going to come down to their big dogs. Now, Brad Treliving did his job. He strengthened the team. Now it's up to guys like Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares. Get this team over the hump now. Get them over the hump, guys, because you know what? The way this team has been playing, you know, you have an opportunity to get first in the Atlantic now. That is an absolute priority now to win first in the Atlantic, guys. Trying to avoid Tampa Bay and Florida, because if you play Tampa Bay and Florida, guys, I think the Leafs' chances of getting out of the first round are very, very slim. Very slim indeed, guys. Tampa, not so much, but if they play Florida, the Leafs, which I don't think will happen in the first round, I just don't know how the Toronto Maple Leafs can beat that Florida Panthers team in a 7-game series. I just don't know, guys. I'm going to be optimistic, but there's a lot of question marks. I like what the Leafs did, but I just like what the Panthers did better. I liked what Tampa Bay did. You know, Washington didn't do anything because they're obviously first. Carolina had to get rid of Rantanen. So a lot of good trades for a lot of good teams, guys. A lot of teams loaded up and are trying to make a push for the Stanley Cup playoffs, guys. But, guys, Brad Treliving did his job. Leafs now got to do what they got to do on the ice. Get as many points as possible. Try to win the Atlantic Division. Many, many things are up in the air, of course, regarding what happens with the Leafs, guys, in the future. But right now, they did what they had to do. Let's hope to God now that they can make a deep run in the playoffs, guys. But incredible trade deadline. A lot of fantastic moves happening in today's trade deadline. Obviously, a couple days before as well. But really intriguing names getting moved today in the NHL trade deadline, guys. Leafs got their additions that they needed. Let's hope to God now that they do what they can in April, guys. But, guys, that's it for this video today. Thank you very much for watching. As always, guys, click like if you like this video. Subscribe if you guys want to see more content. Go Leafs, go, guys. And remember, if you do not watch sports, you're more. Ciao, guys.